Oh, that inquisitive mind is clearly up to something. You guys seem to also be fascinated by the artistry of visual media and communication and film, just like we do. Now, we're continuing this trend of the public asking us questions about the film industry. I've got George here.
How are you doing?
George, lucky to have you again. And George will be asking me a few questions related to what you ask. Let's do this. So what differs this episode a little bit is normally I ask the questions when we have a guest here, but this time you are the question asker. And so for that reason, George compiled all those amazing questions of yours, and he's going to ask those questions. George, over to you.
Thanks, Jacobus. Another exciting episode of Filmworx Fantastic. We are in part 2 of our Ask Questions series. Pretty nice to see the feedback that we got from episode 1. I'm looking forward to unpacking a couple of more questions. So let's jump straight into it. So the first question was, what color would you wear when being on camera, and what color would you not wear when being on camera?
Ooh, well, this is quite important, and I love this one, George. So when we onboard new clients and we start preparing in pre-production, when, what, how, this is definitely part of the wardrobe component that we communicate to them. And so let's start with a what to wear. And so for me personally, and this is really not just for me personally, but this is really camera friendly colors. Think of your pastel colors, your baby pink, your navy, your olive, your maroon. Those type of colors really complement the skin tones, as well as make sure that the camera reads you well. The clothing that I'm wearing right now is a great example. It's a normal brown. It's not a harsh green, and of course, jean, which is a very navy color. But let's move over to the part that you should definitely try to avoid. And the first thing that I would recommend is black and white. Specifically because it doesn't always sit well with everyone's skin tones, and as well, doesn't really read well on camera. So if George had a black shirt on right now, he would totally blend in with his background, even though the lighting is well allocated and making sure that you are etched off well with your backlight. You'll kind of disappear in the background, and we don't want that. We want you to star in the show and shine. And then, of course, going over to those super bright highlight colors, those bright yellow, the high vis, the orange, those type of colors are definitely the colors that I would try to miss and not have in the shot. It's just too bright. It doesn't read well. But let's move over beyond colors and move into patterns. And sometimes, I don't know if you've ever watched the news back in the day, and the newsreader would wear this pinstripe blazer. And when you look at it and he's moving about a little bit, there's almost like this little rainbow that falls over him. And we call that moire, which is a French word. I hope I said it correctly. But that rainbow is because the camera cannot distinguish the finer detail of those fine little stripes over that blazer. And for that reason, I would recommend stay away from all these little fine patterns that a camera cannot really distinguish. So solid colors, pastel colors, go for it.
So am I understanding you correctly, and you're saying I should not wear Lumo orange for my next podcast interview?
Even if that's your brand color, stay away, please.
So bright colors, stripes and blocks, preferably not so much of them. Moving more towards solid colors and your pastel colors.
Yeah, typically your shirt is a good example of blocks that are large and easy for the camera to see. So there's no detail in there. It doesn't confuse the camera. But I'm talking about these fine little stripes that go over blazers typically is try something to avoid.
That's cool. I think a lot of us walk down the street and you think that would look cool on camera or in a photo or on video, but you don't necessarily know how the camera picks it up. And that changes the perspective a bit. Second question would be, what is the first thing you put in your gear bag, and what is the most likely thing that you would forget that you always end up needing on set?
Wow. Now, clearly, you must put that camera in, please. And don't forget that SD card.
So SD cards is definitely one of
Yeah.
them that we've experienced before.
Please, please, please don't forget the SD card. So, yeah, clearly the camera is the most important. But let's talk about something that is really mobile and something that you can grab, go, everything that fits into that bag. And within that, we've actually recently invested in some mobile tripods, even just to make mobility so much easier. We often travel for shoots and we need to make quick moves and fast as well. And so the smaller and more efficient the gear, the better.
So
But
packing light, I guess, is also
yes,
a big part of it.
packing light, but you need to make sure that you have everything at your disposal to still create something special. And so there's a few mobile lights that we use. We put in even powder as well as a brush for powder, doing our own makeup. We ensure that there is a proper microphone package. So normally these amazing wireless lapel microphones, they are so compact and high quality. It's unbelievable. And then, of course, making sure you have backup batteries and chargers and USB-C ports for all those components. So many of the camera gear doesn't necessarily have external batteries anymore, that it's internal batteries, and you need to charge those and get ready. So rocking up on set and realizing, oh dear, if this battery is out, it's done for. Is not a great feeling. And so being sure that you have backup chargers of everything, even for your phone, because your phone is your primary business communication device, right? So when you are out there, that is such an important part. These days, you get bags that even accommodate your editing laptop that you can slide in there. Really, such a compact one-man show production that you can just be on the move and still create incredible content.
Okay. And then the second part of that question, what is the most likely thing that you end up forgetting?
Headphones. So many times that I rock up in there. So I've got everything, and I thought about everything. So normally in my mind, I'm always thinking about exactly like, okay, listen, there need to be audio, but there need to be something to see. I need to light that thing that I see. And then eventually, yes, the microphone's there and I can actually do the job, but I forgot the audio and I need to monitor it. So my suggestion is we put in every one of our camera bags one of those just cheap backup headphones, just for specifically that reason. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that sometimes forgets headphones. And for that reason, we always make sure that we are sorted just for an emergency.
That's cool. Yeah, I think everybody else has something different that they would forget. But if everybody puts their forgetfulness together, we end up with a gear bag full of stuff. And then you can get to the venue and you know that you have everything that you need.
Mm. And what do you see, George? Some of our filmmakers have forgotten that we had to. Luckily, we've got George that always sorts us out. So if something really is, if we're in trouble, we just he's our 911 that we call, and he sorts us out. But what did you see are some of the items that we need to look out for that we may have forgotten before?
So I think from my side, it depends on what goes on set. Every different production has a different set, different monitors, different cameras, different setups. And then sometimes we prepare the best we can. And as soon as you rock up on set, you realize that that cable is the one that I didn't bring today because I wasn't expecting to have this monitor or that device that needs to be connected. So from my side, what I've picked up is cabling. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that you cannot have a car full of cables every day for every set. So sometimes you win, you rock up and you miraculously packed one of them or a spare and you have it and you can go. Other days I'm the backup, the 911 that rushes in to save the day or just sends the cable or whatever device needs to go. Make sure that it gets to set and then it can work. So
speaking of that cables, and so one of the things that we really work to do is build in systems into everything that we do to avoid specifically these kind of scenarios. And we've even created 2 little bags called the butt safe bags, and one for audio and one for video. And specifically the video one is just full of HDMI converters and anything from micro HDMI to HDMI to mini HDMI. That's often something that is, when you rock up on set, you don't realize you need to connect to another device. And this specific device came out of an era that you weren't prepared for, and you need to connect now. And so on the audio side again as well, we have a ButtSafe bag where it's anything from XLR right through to mini jacks that need to communicate from the camera maybe to an AV desk. So those little bags always go out for conferences, and man, it definitely saved my butt before. Definitely.
Yeah, it has. And it's changed our game plan as well, going to set. So, you only have to grab that small bag and it has all the necessary extras in it. Moving on to the next question. One of our fans, one of our listeners, asked, why would you shoot in the middle of a room and not necessarily next to the wall? Because in our case now, we are sitting about, I guess, a meter and a half away from the wall. What is the reasoning behind that?
Yeah. I do love breathing space behind my subject. And so because you have a room that gives you the opportunity with space. Look, the viewer can't guess what the room looks like. And so for that reason, you need to introduce the room and the world in which the character is moving. And if that character is very close to the wall, there's no way of telling where on earth that person is. It could be anywhere. But if you move that subject away from the wall and we see more of the room, we offer ourselves the opportunity, first of all, from a camera perspective, to define the character in front of their world much better. And that could be just by having a shallow depth of field where you focus on the character in foreground and the background is much more out of focus than it would have been if you were close to the wall. It gives you the opportunity to add more lighting possibilities as well. Have a backlight from afar to light not only the head but the shoulders and the rest of the body as well. It gives you the opportunity to add some props, plants, and bring some life to the background instead of keeping it super boring. You'll see on the specific set, there's a plant, there's colorful lights, but even though the lights are just for visual purposes, there are hidden backlights as well, because we are moved forward into the room. And it just offers us the opportunity as a viewer to, first of all, see what is the world that this character is living in, even though it's an interview like this. But secondly, it gives you so much more canvas to paint with to create the full story.
That's fantastic. I think you actually answered one of the questions that was coming up, is why to add plants, why to add props into the background. I think you explained it well. And yeah, from my perspective as well, not necessarily coming from the industry, it's something that you look at, but you don't necessarily understand, and you don't realize that, oh, they were just sitting in a boring room until the lighting came about, or until that plant was put into screen instead of taken out of screen. So yeah, I think that adds a lot, and it just creates a vibe on screen as well.
George, to your point, we are now at a point where we literally take plants. It can be artificial plants. It's not about how real the plant is. It's about creating a feeling and a look. And so even specifically where we are in the industry is we focus on corporate clients. And so for them, the beauty of the office isn't necessarily of the essence. It's about the practicality of an office, which is 100% fine. But it's our responsibility to bring life to that office and our responsibility to tell their story. That's why they get us. And so we need to bring the necessary items. They don't need to ask for it. They don't need to think about it. We need to think about it. So we bring plants, we bring specific lights to bring life into that office. And it makes such a difference. And it's one of those lower cost items that just changes your set. That a little bit of powder specifically for your guests, understanding how to do a quick makeup session, adding those plants, those are little things that really start differentiating you from other filmmakers, definitely. So don't be shy just to go to a local homeware store and buy some plants. The one thing that we did realize was that the taller plants are better. So there's not always like a little coffee table like here that you can just add a plant that's short. So try to get those taller plants to add a little bit of life to your set.
Yeah, makes so much sense. I think moving on to our next question would be, why would you use a podcast mic instead of a lapel mic, or have a rifle mic or a boom mic available? What is the difference in the different kind of mics that you use?
Let me start off by, if you are still early on in your film journey, when I had my first camera and my first microphone, I used that for everything. And sometimes it wasn't ideal for the scenario that I was using it in, but that is what I had, and I had to make it work. And so, taking that into consideration, these specific microphones each are more fit for purpose. So as you grow and you realize your productions are leaning towards certain, more people are booking you for podcasts, more people are booking you for interviews, you start gearing up more to make your own life easier, not just on production, but for post-production, to ensure that the entire process starts running seamless. Because in the start, when you kind of like, fit a square peg into a round hole, it's harder work in post-production also to kind of like fix it later on. It might have the same result, but your own life is harder. And specifically for this scenario, a podcast microphone is purpose-built for podcasts, almost like a radio. This specific microphone is designed to only allow a little pocket of audio that is being sent into it. The moment I start moving further, you don't hear it so well anymore. And that's why it's designed for that, to eliminate external audio and noises from trucks and things that may happen out there. Whereas a lapel microphone is close to the person. It's more an interview style microphone, but it records everything within a 360 surrounding. That's why sometimes you'll even see the microphone being put upside down, because it doesn't matter. It still records whatever voice is closest to it, but it doesn't necessarily eliminate certain sounds. And then you get the rifle microphone, which is also much more focused, hearing the noise where it is pointing to, but it's designed for a longer range of receiving the audio within that specific. And for interviews, a lapel mic and a rifle mic both are incredible. You'll see on the movies, those rifle mics are normally above the actors, and sometimes they'll even hide those little lapel mics somewhere in the wardrobe, just as a backup audio plan, just to be safe.
Those lapel mics being hidden in the wardrobe could be quite scratchy.
They could.
Hence the rifle mic also being present.
Yeah.
So having that backup is just covering yourself.
Absolutely. It's so expensive to try and salvage audio afterwards, and not just expensive, it's time consuming. And if you need to get your cast back to re-record themselves, it's an unnecessary exercise. And again, it's so much more time that you have to spend in post-production trying to sync up those mouths now with what was filmed on set. You are trying to avoid all of that by doing it properly on the day.
So here at SA Filmworx, we did about 360 productions last year. With every new production, there's a new set of challenges that comes with that. Question was, what is your most stressful kind of shoot, production? And what have you done to minimize the risk of that, to settle yourself?
Yeah, so definitely live streams are very intense, and ironically, they are a pretty simple setup. There's typically a microphone, there's a camera that goes into a little live mixer, and that tricks the computer into thinking, oh, this is a web camera, so it's just stream out. And yes, all of that is theoretically pretty simple, but there are components that's outside of my control that I do not always have control over. A good example is maybe just getting to the location that you needed. I recently had an issue with that, where the flight was delayed so far that I couldn't make a specific live stream. It was devastating for us. Or even just your internet service provider could be on that day a little bit wonky, and all of a sudden everything on your side is working but the upload. And so one of the components that we've learned is to just have enough pre-production time, just rock up there 2-3 hours beforehand, start testing, figuring it out, call beforehand to figure out if it's a hotel conference center, is there a way to get a dedicated line just for that upload? Is there maybe a plan B for your internet connection that you can bring along, maybe a mobile router? Is there a way to just ensure that all those exterior components are at least managed before, as your system may probably be properly working, but all those components are in trouble? And then test it. So we normally do little test sessions beforehand, like, cool, everything should be working. The internet connection is fine. Let's do like a quick Teams call with this internet connection and everything and see if it works. Listen to the audio. Is it clear? Is it coming from the right microphone? Is the camera clear? Are the faces clear? And so all of those components should be rigidly tested beforehand. Setup time must be longer than your conventional setup time for just a normal shoot, because this thing cannot be saved in post. This is live, and what happens on the day happens on the day. And so making sure that your cameras have external power that's working, that's not going to die along the way. Your microphones are all charged up. No one's going to lose a channel somewhere. Learning also to be comfortable with your system. Trusting your system and understanding how exactly it works to get those optimal results. But live streams are a service that has been growing in a need for companies as well, specifically with time-sensitive information that needs to be conveyed, and is definitely something to consider. Just understand that it's much more risky than filming something and going into various revisions before it actually sees the light in public.
Yeah, I think something that people would consider is doing that testing beforehand, teaching yourself how to do a live stream from home, even if it's just phoning a friend, getting them to dial in and testing your system and making sure that you are equipped to handle something like that. And also to test yourself in terms of when that backup is needed or when something goes fritz, that you know what to do. So
a good example of something that happened years ago, and something we could not have anticipated, was we had a super simple, we live streamed from a phone inside like a surgery room, and so super chill. We tested it, everything worked, everything was perfect. Unbeknownst to us, that the system inside the surgical room has such a strong magnetic field when activated during a surgery that it just absolutely disrupts all forms of Wi-Fi, of 5G, everything. And so even though we'd rigidly tested, that machine distorted the entire live stream, and there was no way to rectify it while that surgery was being active and someone else wanted to look at the surgery from far away. And so we've learned so many things from just testing and also going through some failures to rectify that in the future. And we'll definitely, if we ever do something similar like that again, have a camera there, have a vision mixer with a hard line, because the signals can be interfered with. You'll find this when you try to watch a YouTube video right next to the microwave. It was literally the same effect, but just 10 times worse. And so that those tests, as you say, must be sorted. And even after all those tests, that you're just running on energy just to make sure that you're hyper vigilant of every cut is working. And only after the live stream is done, then you can, okay, that's done, I can rest now.
Relax. I think that's it for today. Thank you again for joining me on Filmworx Fantastic and our Ask a Question series. It was lovely being part of this. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in the next one.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next episode of Filmworx Fantastic.